Hi, everybody, and welcome to the micro lecture 0.2 about defining flexibility. Again, because this institute, the Flexibility for Equitable Learning and Teaching Institute, and here in summer 2022, is for the entire California State University system. We need to take into consideration there are 23 campuses and more than 23 different ways of defining flexibility. So let's go. I see flexibility as a space-time or a time-space continuum. And so you can see along the top row, we have columns for asynchronous only courses, asynchronous and synchronous combined courses, and synchronous only courses. And for each row header, we can see we have online only courses, online and in-person courses, and in-person only courses. Now, if we go around the 9 boxes in the grid contained by those column and row headers, we can see in the top left, online asynchronous courses is one modality, fully online, sometimes people call it. In the top right corner, online and synchronous is often what some people have been calling remote, virtual, what have you. In the bottom right corner, in-person synchronous courses. That's your typical in-class traditional class. In the bottom left corner, in-person but asynchronous might be something like a student-led seminar. It might be something related to self-scheduled lab work, you name it. They all exist, but they're all only one modality in the class schedule. Now, when we start looking at the compass points in the center and middle columns and rows, then we start getting to where we're combining different time and space elements. So in the top center box, an fully online course that's both asynchronous and synchronous. 1 or 2 campuses call it bisynchronous. Sometimes that you're alternating like a hybrid class, and other times you're giving students a choice how they participate. In the middle right box, you're combining online and in-person modalities for synchronous courses. Some campuses are calling this co-synchronous, some are calling it other things, but the idea is that you have Roomers and Zoomers or whatever video conference tool you're using, WebExers. And there you go. In the bottom center box, we see in-person courses that are both asynchronous and synchronous. This might be something like a service learning course where there are in-class components and then student scheduled aspects of the experience where they're working in the community or virtually to support some service learning organization. Last, online and in-person courses that are all asynchronous might be some campuses are calling this mixed asynchronous, but it's a combination of opportunities for students to learn online, but also maybe get together in study groups or writing groups or even groups dedicated to helping them with their bachelor thesis or something like that. In the very center is where we start seeing all these things converge. And so you have online and in-person, asynchronous and synchronous. Flipped courses actually fall in this category. There's only 2 modalities for flipped. You have the in-person classroom experience and the asynchronous online experience. And then you're flipping the class so that they come to class after watching the recorded or pre-recorded videos. And then there's 3 modalities like hybrid flexible or high flex, where students are able to come to class in the room. They can come to class via the video conference solution your campus uses, or they can do it asynchronously. So you can see the bold items on this chart represent a variety of ways that we can discuss flexibility, and that's all just within the concept of how are we describing these courses to students when they register for classes. Students themselves say the reasons they choose online and flexible courses vary. And so it could be that they want the ability to work ahead or go back and review. They may need to have a flexible schedule because they have other obligations like work, like taking care of children, or caregiver responsibilities for other adults who might be ill or elderly and need support. The location might be something that's important to them. We just talked about space and time, so the ability to learn at home while caring for family, especially as K-12 schools shut down and open up and do everything under the sun. Also, students may want to just take time for mental health. They may want to skip a class meeting and go asynchronously, or just study from their dorm room, even though they're on the same campus where the class is being taught, just because that will reduce their anxiety or stress or give them more opportunity to sleep. Time zones. We still have international students who may have a hard time getting into the country. We have people who might be have left the country and can't get back. Whatever the case may be, we need to address the population of students that are in other time zones. And sometimes it becomes very difficult for them to participate in a live experience or to get there in person. Last but not least, the flexibility also dictates that we need to take into consideration, we still have high percentage of the population, almost a quarter of students saying that they don't have reliable access to a device other than their smartphone. So how do we create flexibility that includes access as part of the picture? When we start looking at what flexibility means in terms of how we provide it, there are flexibility examples, but then we can also start jumping into what are the equity considerations around those ideas. So for example, many of us played around with the idea of flexible due dates during the pandemic, giving students more time to complete learning tasks. However, we also learned that that's not always equitable for every instructor. My colleagues Shavella Pittman and Tom Tobin wrote an article in the Chronicle of Higher Education that talked about how the experience for a white male instructor like myself might vary dramatically from a woman faculty of color. So we want to consider how we offer these strategies to support our students without creating challenges for our colleagues and for our students, because the students need to consider the ramifications of trying to do things outside of basically the time frame we've suggested they do them. And that might be worth then thinking about what's called the warm demander approach. I first learned about this from my colleague, Michelle Pacansky-Brock, who works in the California Community College system. And the literature on warm demanders goes back to the 70s, where a researcher was working in Native Alaskan communities and learned a lot about different ways to support students with high expectations, but high levels of care and support. Which means that when we give the idea of flexible due dates, that we set expectations that the boundaries are not completely flexible, they're partially flexible. Flexible start dates is another way that we can help students control their learning experience. And for first generation students, we may want to help them manage their time and their tasks intentionally with specific strategies, like putting your work in your calendar, setting reminders, making sure that you are not falling back on patterns that you've developed, habits that you've developed during the pandemic, where you're less self-motivated and you're following someone else's lead. We want to make sure that we're providing flexibility, but also promoting responsibility on the part of students. In these Institute modules, we'll also cover flexibility in a variety of ways that go beyond the scope of the class schedule. Again, we'll think about things like flexible submission formats, communication strategies, and participation options. And then, even though we're not exclusively talking about hybrid flexible courses, we can learn from the literature on hybrid flexible course design. My colleague from San Francisco State University, Brian Beatty, has a free open book about hybrid flexible course design, and he has an entire chapter on values and principles. And I lean on these values and principles when I talk about flexibility in any context. Are we providing learners choice? Now, we may not have the capability of giving the learners a choice in whether or not they come to a classroom. That may be decided by our campus, by our department chair, what have you. I'm a lecturer, so I often don't get to make that choice. However, we can give students choice in how many essay questions they can choose from to take an essay test. We can give them choice in a variety of ways that don't fit within the idea of what we see in the class schedule. Equivalency. If there are multiple pathways to participate in a course, are we making sure that students have equivalent pathways to meet the learning outcomes? If they're asynchronous, are they going to feel like they're just watching other people interact and not getting an opportunity to interact themselves? We're going to talk about that in this institute. Reusability. How do we take artifacts that are generated on the fly as we're teaching, or things that we produce ahead of time? How do we make it so that we can reuse them? I've already broken some of the rules. I've discussed the fact that this is 2022. I have also discussed the fact that this is for the California State University system. So that means that I have basically fixed this little video in time and put it in a context that doesn't always work for other campuses. So when you're pre-recording videos, or even as you're recording a live class session, you can think about what should you avoid including in your speech so that you can reuse that later on. Last but definitely not least, all the things that we do, the content that we produce and ask students to consume, the activities we ask students to complete, the assessments that have them show what they know, everything has to be accessible for students with disabilities and students with many other needs as well. So now that we've operationally defined flexibility, I'm going to have one more, I promise only one more of these little micro lectures for the Getting Ready Module 0. It's going to be about, hey, how are we going to complete this institute this summer? So I encourage you to press pause, go grab a sip of water, take a break, walk around, and then come back to 0.3 and press play. I'll see you there.